kind of getting off to a rough start here, but hello, good afternoon. I am attempting to set up several things, and as you can see, we've got the tunnel vision here because I've changed my OBS settings around so I can show my desktop, and I've got a lot of things I hope I can show you, but it's going to take some configuration and some work, and it's going to be a lot rougher than I had hoped I could make this final lecture, but it's really going to be more of a series of demos than a lecture because I'm afraid it's not going to be very organized. Just the number of things I had to figure out, that was unexpected. So anyways, that was a tunnel vision as you saw, but this is something I did want to show you here. This is, oops, let me get back out of studio mode. Yeah, so it's going to be kind of awkward as I'm switching back and forth among things, but I want to share with you some final ideas about games and video games, and specifically the question of art and how and in what way are video games art, or how can they do art, or how can art use games. And these are a set of related questions that I think have answers in several of the examples that I'm going to show you today. When I have time, when I've given versions of this demonstration and talk, and I have had time to do this a little bit with a bit more care, I do like to organize this a little bit because I feel that when we think about games as art, I think there are a number of specific tropes and categories that we can think about as far as games doing art, or aesthetic expressions that video games do that are unique to video games. And I'm going to try to talk about as many of those as I can get to. I know it's the last lecture. And this is going to be very different from the other ones, I think. And if, I don't have, I will type up a text version of this later once I have time, but I will kind of explain my ideas here and then show you some things, and then you can look at the explanation later, I suppose. As I kind of alluded to this morning, the big challenge I ran into, which turned out to be even more significant than I realized, was getting several of these games to actually work in a way that I can show you. And I would like to show you them if I can, demonstrate me playing them, if at all possible. But in some cases, I just have a video or a screenshot, and that's going to have to do, because that's all that I can get working. It's an interesting set of challenges, but it's definitely a set of challenges, especially those things that deal with Flash. Okay, so what you're looking at right now, this is the webpage of an artist named Jason Nelson, and I'm going to show you a couple of his if I can. Probably, I don't know if I can play any in the browser actually. He does have several that deal with that are done in HTML5, and I know he's in the process of converting some things, but he has not completed them yet. So as far as I know, so I'm going to try to download and play a few of his games in a moment. But I just thought it would be a good kind of visual to illustrate what's going on and when we talk about video games and art. Okay, so I'm going to have to keep Discord up on my other computer. One art, please. Yeah. Tell us, yeah, is that Hollow Knight, Colin? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that it's not art. Looks like you all are typing, so that's good. Yeah. It shouldn't. I don't think I've changed the volume settings, Kate, but I can check. It looks normal to me. But I don't know. It may sound different to you, but I think it looks like it's like the OBS thing that I watched. Yeah, it could be. I don't know. Anyway, so one way of answering this question is what I think you all are talking about right now in Discord, which is the basic question is, are video games automatically art? Is that just an essence of what they are? And this is a debate, and people have had this debate. Roger Ebert, in particular, had some thoughts about this. I think, obviously, video games are art, and obviously, video games can be beautiful. If beauty is one of the things that we expect from art, we can certainly find it in video games, and there's certainly video games that are exceptional examples of that. I haven't played Hollow Knight, but it looks like from that screenshot, I would agree that the artistry of that is noteworthy and seems really valuable. It looks good to me. There are other games that try really hard to be art, or the games that are well known for their art, for the artwork that appears in them. The idea, like Braid is a well-known game that many people think of as art or trying to be art. I'm personally not a fan of Braid, so I'm not going to be talking about it today, but it's one that many people like, and I appreciate that. I think most of you probably do agree that video games have at least the potential to be art, or else you might not have signed up, probably wouldn't have signed up for this class. And for me, it's like that's certainly a debate worth having about like what does it mean to call something art? What does it mean to call video games art? But to me, I kind of prefer to just take for granted that, yeah, they are. Obviously they are. And then look instead at some things that are maybe a bit more unusual and things that might be doing art in different ways and in ways that aren't necessarily beautiful. Beauty is one thing that some art can have and can be, but artists through different time periods and different mediums have found it useful to explore other kinds of aesthetics for various reasons, sometimes to be profound or sometimes to be to file a kind of protest against dominant aesthetics. And the negotiation of what gets to be counted as beautiful is something that, like everything we've talked about in this class, is a cultural negotiation where people have different opinions and values that come to bear in what gets to count and what doesn't count. So it's a bigger debate than we have time to really get into today. But I think what I can get into is show you some examples of art and art games, or games that explore artistic practices in specific ways. So the themes that I'm interested in are several. Let me explain some of these themes that I'm interested in exploring. The Memento Mori, or the idea that you must die, that you remember you must die. This is a poem. This is a poetic. This is something that appears in many games, especially games that attempt to signal their artistic status. And Passage was one of those that we played a while ago. I want to show you one more called Every Day the Same Dream by Mole Industria. There's a couple more I wanted to play, but I couldn't because they didn't work. So it's a theme, and you'll see it in not just these games that have focus on that, but in some others as well. A second category that I'm interested in are games about art, or games that literally help you play with or think about art. So taking existing art like Jackson Pollock and then turning that into a playable game, like what is that like? So that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in showing you. I thought of one that I forgot about until just now that I might be able to play because I think it runs in Java instead of Flash, if I remember correctly. Is it? Yeah, this is the right website. Let's see if it'll work. They look like they've changed their website, so they may not have it online anymore. Well, yeah, okay. Well, like everything else, I'm gonna have to look for it again. But this was I'll just check here real quick. But this was a game based on a painting by Piet Mondrian, and it lets you play it as though it's a level of Pac-Man, and apparently it does not exist here anymore. So anyway, I'll look for it later. Or maybe in the Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine has things, but what I found out today, even if you can find it, doesn't mean you can actually play it again, even if you can get the original SWF file. Okay, so we've got Memento Mori games. We've got games about art. There are also games that explore kinetics in really beautiful ways or interesting ways. Probably I don't have a good example of that to show you, but the game Flower for PlayStation 4 and other titles, other consoles, is a good example of that. I'm going to show you some examples of interactive or playful digital poetry, and a lot of the works that you see here from Jason Nelson fall into that category. I also think there's a big category of so-called what I would call anti-games, or games that are not playable, or games that present play in a way that's counterintuitive or in some ways frustrate the ability to play. And then There's a big category of games that focus on glitch or excess or failure or crash, and I can show you. I do have several examples of those I can show you. There's also installation games, so games that there can only be one of, and so you have to go somewhere to play it. There's things like Pain Station, which is a Pong type game. Actually, I have a picture of some people playing it here, I think. Yeah, so it's like a Pong type game, except it injures you while you play if you miss the ball. Giant Joystick by Mary Flanagan. It's like literally a joystick that's connected to an Atari, and you can play it, but the joystick is like 10 feet tall, and it takes like 3 or 4 people to move it because it's super heavy. That's another installation kind of piece. Let's see, do I have? Nope. I thought I had it in another tab, but these are some examples of anti-games by Ian Bogost actually here, but that's not what I was getting ready to point out as far as installation games. These installation games I literally can only tell you about because I can't, like, they don't exist anymore. But he made this game called Simony, which was installed in a museum in Jacksonville, and you had to walk up these stairs in order to play it, and it was all built around this claim that there's a kind of religious aspect or a spiritual aspect to video games, and so it was an experiment or kind of playing with that idea. I think things like this actually have an interesting antecedent or heritage, I guess, in other games that are meant for artistic purposes that aren't video games. I always like to look for precedents before you would think of things being available, but there's a whole art movement in the 1960s called Fluxus, F-L-U-X-U-S, and they created several interactive installation pieces. So it's like performance art, but with audience participation, and those have a kind of playful aspect to it. That includes artists like Alison Knowles is the one I know the most about, and then Yoko Ono is an artist associated with that group. You probably have heard of her. But that's installation. I don't really have much I can really show you other than to tell you about them. There's also several creators who are really prolific in the kind of art game space that kind of have games that touch on several different categories, and so I'm just going to show you a few examples of theirs. Tale of Tales is one design group, and then Dreaming Methods is another, and I can show you some of their work as well. So that's kind of the outline of my talk, and so I wanted to give you those terms, and then I'm going to now attempt to show you several examples of several of those terms to the extent that I can, and I'm going to have to keep an eye on both screens. Journey. Yep, you're right. Journey is another good example of a game with artistic purposes, not just nice looking, like well done visual art in the kind of craft sense of like making good art, but also just like a really a poetic kind of idea for a game, and I think that's a really good example. And I think it was the same company for both of those. You're right. Okay, so I'm going to take my eye off the chat for a minute, and I want to show you all some gameplay of. I don't have my earbuds with me, so I'm gonna have to put on my big headphones so I can hear what's going on in the game. This is. I would like to. Hopefully, I can play a game called Every Day the Same Dream. This is a game by Moli Industria, or Paolo Pedersini, and hopefully it's going to work. Yeah, it worked earlier, so cool. Let me just switch over to Twitch so I can make sure you see what I'm saying. Okay, so can you hear the music on it? No. There we go. Okay, so I wanted to do the music because it's an important part of how it sets the tone in this game. All right, so this is a game with minimal aesthetics in a certain way in terms of the visuals, and even the gameplay. Like, we're just moving left and right, and we can interact with things as we approach them. If we get close enough for something to have a label, like this is alarm, usually that means we can interact with it, so I can hit the space bar and turn off the alarm. This is a game under the Memento Mori category, as I said. Can you all let me know if you can hear me okay, by the way. I'm talking with the music in the background. Hopefully I can, yeah. So hopefully you can hear music in the background and me talking. Let me know if the balance gets weird. But this is the game. We just can walk, turn off the TV if you want. There's my wife, as it says. Come on, honey, you're late. It's the only interaction we can have with her. And then we leave. So Memento Mori means remember you must die. In other words, these are games that in some ways contemplate death and mortality. This is Elevator Lady, and she tells us 5 more steps and you will be a new person. Now I have a couple choices here. I'm gonna go right this time. I'll play at least two lives in this one, or 2 days, rather. So here's my driving to work simulator. I'm just pushing right. He's kind of dressed like John Mulaney, isn't he? There's a leaf there. One of the few things that's not monochromatic. You are late. This is my boss. Alright, so one of the things that may change, keep an eye on this graph here. It's going up right now. I'm just walking to my desk. Now there is a green exit sign, and something that you have learned so far by playing this game is that things that are in color are things you can interact with. There are other things you can interact with though, like sitting at your desk, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is my first game, my first day. That's it. The day starts over again, or it's the next day. We can actually proceed without getting dressed, but I'm going to choose to get dressed this time. The music doesn't have isn't event-based, but it has a nice sound to it, the kind of driving rhythm, I think, and it sort of builds tension a little bit, but releases it, it builds and releases in kind of a nice wave pattern. 5 more steps and you'll be a new person, she said. Right, it was 5. You're trying to reduce that number. Like that, there is an actual sense of progress in this game where you're trying to require fewer steps. I got to work a lot faster that time. It's randomized, I think. So let's take a look at this leaf. Come back, leaf. Okay. I think I was supposed to pick up that leaf, but it flew away. So it must be the same day still because that graph hasn't moved. And I still have 5 more to go. Maybe I can't get the leaf unless I've done something else first. All right, let's see what happens if I don't get dressed. And as Jack is ironically noting there in the chat, this is not a game about action. Most of these games that I'm playing here are not fun in a traditional sense. They appeal to different emotions, as Maddie's suggesting. This is a game that appeals to ennui, boredom, sadness. I mean, it could be depressing. It's something that communicates an idea that that we don't usually expect from a game, but we can seek it out and we can appreciate it. Absolutely, yeah. Kelly says the music helps set the mood. Absolutely. No one's noticed that I'm not dressed yet. I just realized in this particular day. Yeah, sometimes traffic is really bad. Leave. He says, "What? Where's your tie? You are fired." All right, so there's a difference, right? That time I didn't get to go to my desk. Didn't get to sit down. So, I get dressed again. Elevator lady, and she says 4 more steps and you will be a new person. So this is progress, right? This is the kind of thing where even though you probably have already, as you explore this game for the first time, it takes a while to discover that that's a mechanic built into this, that there are still things that you can change. It's like Groundhog Day the movie, where things are being repeated, but you have to see what differences you can make. And there's a countdown, so there's an actual sort of progress indicator to show you how far you have to go. Notice the bar graph is going down. He says I'm late, even though I got fired yesterday, but every day is the same day, so not really, right? So it doesn't matter. Also, which one am I, right? Like, I'm moving this one, but I might as well be this other one. I might be playing as an entirely different person who lives in an identical house and looks identical. And these are the kinds of questions raised by this game. Well, let's see. There's some steps down there. The other side. I guess I should provide a content warning for this game. There is a possibility of thinking about suicide in this game, and it doesn't depict it, and you can't actually choose to do it. But that's something worth noting. Actually, well, maybe you can. I'm not going to do that right now. But that's the kind of thing that is possible. Now, I'll let you all play this game. You can actually play it from Moli Industria, and let me close that out so I can show you how to get to it. If you want to try it yourself, see if you can get all 5 steps. Usually takes some trial and error, but you can get to it. Here, I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat if you want to try it out on your own sometime. You might be able to play it in the browser, or what I did, I just downloaded the SWF, and when you download it, if you download the Windows or the Mac version, it should have what's a built-in flash projector, which means it should play on its own without needing to have separate software. So here's Every Day the Same Dream. Cool. Okay, so let's take a look at some more. Check my notes here. So yeah, that was a Memento Mori game. There's another game called One Chance, which is a game that's definitely an homage to Every Day the Same Dream. The difference with One Chance is that it is actually a puzzle. You have a number of decisions, but there's only, of all the different combinations of decisions, there's only one combination that will actually succeed in you saving the world from a deadly virus. So most of the time you fail, and the game is programmed in such a way that you can only play it once. Like if you try to replay the game, restart it, rewind 7 days, it won't let you. So you have to play it on a different commercial. It is topical, and it's actually extremely sad. I don't like playing the game because it makes me very sad. But it also like deals with reality and stuff. I think it was this game I'm talking about, One Chance. It was, I think, 2010, so it's pretty old. I can't have the. Yeah, here's where it was, which doesn't work anymore because of Flash dying. But it was 2010. One aspect of that game that I found particularly affecting is like if you think about different endings and the different values you associate with different endings. Like there are different kind of decent outcomes and some horrible outcomes, and one of the decent outcomes is. And I actually never beat the game. I never figured out how to save the world, but it's supposedly possible. Like you are a scientist, and if you do the right things, supposedly you can save the world. Or you could spend your time that you have 7 days to save the Earth, or maybe it's 4 days. But you can do things like you work super hard on trying to find a cure, or you can like spend time with your family before you all die. And like that's such a heartbreaking choice, like that's such a sad thing to consider. So anyway, that game gets me. All right, so let's take a look. I'm not gonna, well, I don't know if I have any of these playable, but games about art I think are interesting, and I'm not gonna play 99 Exercises in play right now because I couldn't find a download of it. I have a download of it somewhere, but I can't find it. It's on one of these hard drives or computers. But you all saw this and thought about it in the context of metagaming. So Patrick Lemieux, one of the authors of that book, has produced several games in the context of art. And this game actually does have an artistic context, even though that might not have been evident. And maybe if you read about it, you might have seen that. But the title is a reference to a work by Raymond Queneau, who's one of the founders of the Oulipo, which is a group of poets working in, founded, I believe, in the 1960s. But they are poets who are interested in constraints and rules and thinking of language as a poetry generator and trying to change the rules of that generator to generate new kinds of poetry. So one of the things that Queneau did is he wrote a book called Exercises in Style, where he writes a story and then tells the story 99 different ways. So it's the same basic story, but he tells it in 99 different styles. And that constraint is something that other artists have used in different media. So as Patrick notes down here, like Matt Madden's 99 Ways to Tell a Story does that with comics. So it's 99 different comic versions of telling the same story. Really fascinating work on its own and beautiful. But this is Patrick Lemieux's approach to that. So it has that reference to the artistic context. Patrick also did a series of, there's Triforce. There's a game called Memento Mortis. Let's see if I can go. Where's this way? Yeah, okay. So yeah, a number of years ago, he did an exhibit of art pieces that were each based on specific artists. So kind of like, yeah, so here's an installation where you get to experience something that comments on or reacts to Jackson Pollock, Andy Warhol, Ad Reinhard. So these are interactive pieces that are meant to help you experience an art piece, like to think about art, like what would happen if we could play a Picasso painting? It's that kind of question. And these are pretty interesting examples. These were also installations, so this is like the only version most of these have, although it looks like you might be able to download. Oh yeah, it looks like you can download this one, this Ad Reinhard one. Let me see. I have not tried this one yet, so you know what? I'm not going to mess around with it right now. It'll probably take me too long to debug it. It probably works, but I'm just going to move on. Yep, I'm just seeing. Hey, there's Stephanie. Yeah, I got to see the exhibit in person. That's why I knew about it. So I was just seeing if they had any pictures of me there. Okay, so another game that I'd like to share is actually, it does have a nice kinetic sense to it, but it's better thought of as digital poetry, which is a game called Asteroids by Jim Andrews. Kelly, I see you have a question there. Why not do both? If you're referencing in one game, one chance, like why not save the world and spend time with your family? You can't. It makes you choose one or the other. So it's very sad. So where's Asteroids? Maybe it's here. Oh yeah. Okay, so let's play Asteroids. Mm-hmm. I think this is launching, in the process of launching. Might take it a second, but yeah, it looks like it's working. So this is, turn this down here. This is a game that has a play element that you will recognize if you've played Asteroids. It's based on Asteroids. And let's just go ahead and, yeah, this is the instructions for how to play. And let's just go ahead and play. And so you can see how it works. You get different starting words, but basically you're flying around and hitting the X key to shoot and blow things up. And as you can see on the bottom right, my menometer or menometer is going up as I shoot different things. So this is a work of digital poetry. It's using the word poetry right now, but I would call this digital poetry because it deals with text and it plays with and like uses the idea of meaning as a kind of a joke. Oh, okay, it just crashed. So that's but as I play, I'm experiencing text and generating text, and I can read it and respond to it. You know what? If there's okay, sorry, I died. Let me try again. But it uses the mechanics of games. So movements. This is a non-Euclidean space, so you can move like up, like you can see the word poetry flying up there, and then coming in from the bottom. It's not. It looks a little dark on the stream, but hopefully you can get the basic idea of it. I'm driving around the word poetry, looking for something to shoot, and there's another word named word poetry that I'm going to shoot. And then as you shoot it, they become other typographic characters that gradually fade. These are kind of hard because they're smaller. And we're essentially accumulating images and sounds, poetic images and sounds, to produce poetry. And it gets harder. But you know, the way that it gets harder kind of reminds us of how poetry is hard. You know, poetry, reading poetry, understanding poetry, writing poetry, these are things that take effort and energy and can be challenging, and it can be frustrating if you feel like you're not doing it right or you're not getting a poem. But this kind of has that, but also has the difficulty, like the actual kinetic, ludic difficulty of like you also have to shoot stuff. You have to actually hit things with the image or you don't get it at all. Kind of an unusual work. All right, so I think that's probably good enough. It's, well, there's lots of words coming at me. You notice they move towards you, like they're trying to get you, basically. Unlike in Asteroids, in the game Asteroids, things move basically randomly. And as you can hear, there's sounds. All right, cool. So I'm going to exit out of this one. This is Asteroids by Jim Andrews. Okay, so let's see, what other games can I show you? Oh yeah, so another game. So Asteroids is interesting because it has the kinetic, the movement, as part of its poetics, but also it's a kind of work based on you know, kinetics. I mean, that's the artistry of it, is the movement of it. There's another game kind of like that in that sense, which is, this is by, I do want to talk about the mountain in a moment, but I was going to show you this one first. This one's called The Plan. I don't know much about this other than that it was made by the developers of Among the Sleep, which is a game that I cannot bring myself to play. It sounds too emotionally challenging, so I have not played it yet. But this is a game. I get really affected by games sometimes, I've noticed. But this is a game by the same studio, and as you can see, there's a large fly here. I think this is fairly short. I think I can complete this whole thing in a minute or two. I'll try anyway. So I'm just using the arrow keys. Shaking a lot. And I think your goal is simply to fly upward. Actually, I can't tell if there's any sound. Yeah, there's sound. Oh man. Can I get out of here? So visually, I think this will remind you of Limbo. If you played Limbo or saw my demo of it the other day, you know, the kind of fuzzy edges, the kind of stark imagery, the way that it looks like you're sort of viewing things from a distance. Can't quite make it out. I think it definitely has that kind of soft edge feel to it. Even the kind of haloing around the sides looks very similar to Limbo. So I think so when we think of the aesthetics of a game like Limbo, and we could even talk about Limbo as a kind of digital poetry. Leonardo Flores is a scholar of this kind of thing, and he has argued that we should view Limbo as poetry, digital poetry, because it includes some text that you can interact with at one point. So he said that's a minimal condition that he feels something needs to have in order to be counted as poetry. So this would not count. But this has a similar aesthetic. I think a game like this, by its nature, raises a number of questions, like why am I fly? Why is this called the plan? What are my goals? And does accomplishing those goals mean that I've won the game? My goal basically seems to be to fly upward. But there's other things going on in the world, like I can hear things. It sounds like a bird. You know, but why is that the thing to do? It's like my cursor's right here in the way. So, you know, more of an experience than a game maybe, or a poem than a game maybe. I think I'm near the end, but I'm going to go ahead and quit just so I can move on to other things. I think it's free. I mean, it's already in my Steam library, so it's hard to tell sometimes if things actually cost money. I don't remember, but I think it's free, or if anything, it's very cheap. So an interesting experience and kind of an unusual one. So that's why I thought I'd share it. I'm really just going to be scratching the surface here, by the way, and there's lots of games that I know about and I'm interested in and I can think about, but I can't play them. So the things that I'm here are kind of curated by that more than any desire to show you a cohesive group of games. Although I hope these do have some cohesion to them and some clarity. Okay, so let's look at a couple more that are clearly digital poetry, and I think I'm going to do a couple from. This is another example of an anti-game, by the way. It doesn't work anymore. It's called Worst Game Ever, or Go Right. It was made for the Adult Swim platform, their game platform. Let's take a look at, where's Jason Nelson? There he is. Okay. Let's see if I can play some of these in the browser. Some of them I believe I can, but many of them are not going to work. Let's try this one. This is called the Bafflement Fires. Okay. I have not looked at this one before. This, I think, was a physical installation piece that he's recreated for the screen. How many total players? Let's do 2. 1. Adventure forward. Oh wow. Okay. Type a curious player name. Steven. Okay. Okay. Think of the ocean. Consider its rolling waves meeting a forever expanse of featureless blue sky. You are banished to a disused oil platform with ample food, fresh water, and electricity. Which of the following groups do you want with you? An internet connection, computer, drugs, medical and otherwise, tormented ghosts. A romantic partner, spider infestation, ice cream, 90s sitcoms, a beloved dog, an enemy, good wine, Star Trek pulp novels. So let me know in the chat, what should I choose here? Tormented ghosts, 90s sitcoms, Star Trek novels. Somebody help me decide. I've got 40 seconds. All right, we've got 2 votes. We got 1 vote for number 1, but then we've got 2 votes for 1. Okay, we got notes. All of them. Okay, it looks like 1 is getting the most votes. Although I like the all caps Star Trek there, Beck. Okay, so this is basically a board game. As you can see, I'm moving through it. But I can tell you that there's probably there are probably things about this that aren't quite what they seem. You have find the courage is hidden in the heart of a whale, struggling to free itself from the nets. Which spell do you use to coax away the courages before the whale dies? The spell of sudden sinking, requiring your blindness for 3 years. The spell of diversion, reducing your intelligence for 14 months. The spell of hooks, stealing your movements for 6 months. I'm going to go ahead and choose blindness. So you notice nothing actually matters. There's no actual consequences. There's really probably no mystery here. This is about the ideas and the images and the the story, basically. What types of trees yield to humans when called through a metallic forest? 1 out of every 7,000 oak trees over 100 years old. Cloudy branches from bronze rain. Towers are not trees. 2 cloudy branches from bronze rain. So as you move your way through this, you notice you're not like accomplishing a goal. You're not uncovering a mystery. You are experiencing images and poetry that doesn't really make sense in a kind of game mechanic kind of way. And that's what you see a lot with Jason's work. Jason Nelson's work. It can be very, it can pretend to be a game in certain ways, but ultimately turn out not to really make sense as a game, but it makes sense as a work of visual or digital poetry. And that's what I think he's ultimately doing here. Let's see, he's very prolific actually, he's done quite a few. Let's see if I can do, so there's kind of a trilogy of games that have an interesting cohesion to them, and I'm gonna try to play one of them at least. The first was Game, and again Game, and that's the one I have downloaded. Then the sequel to that one was I Made This, You Play This, We Are Enemies. And then the kind of third in that trilogy was Evidence of Everything Exploding, but I can't find it in here. It's in here somewhere, I think. This is not a website built to be... Oh, there it is. Evidence of Everything Exploding, which I think is actually probably the best of the three. In fact, maybe I'll go ahead and try this one too. You know, it's not going to play like this, but I believe I can... Well, I'll try it. This might not be... This might work. I'm going to try to save the SWF file. And it might be self-contained, but it probably isn't. Like, usually when he makes a game, it's actually usually like 10 or 12 different SWF files that all refer to each other. So this may not work, but I'm going to try it. I'll try Game, and again Game first, because I'm pretty sure that one does work, at least partially, and I'll show you the part of it that doesn't work. Once I get it working here, so art games, Flash stuff. So what I'm playing with this with, by the way, you know, Flash as the web plugin doesn't work anymore, but it is still possible to acquire a standalone player from Adobe, and that's what I have here. So it can open a SWF file at least and try to play it. That's not it. There it is. And I believe it was not this one. Was it this one? This one. I think this is the right one. Yeah, okay. So there should be sound on this. Let me make sure it's working. And I'm going to make this bigger. Double check that you can actually see it. Yeah, so I hear sound. Okay, so this is the original game. This was a game, a Flash game, and Jason did something kind of interesting with this. Like, Jason's a digital poet, and so, you know, he puts things in galleries and collections and so on, but this was a Flash game that he made, and he just put this out on all of the various like Flash game websites that existed, like Congregate and addictinggames.info or whatever they are. And so a lot of people finding this game in that context were understandably perplexed by it. You control as this kind of this like spidery thing that blinks, and as you unclick, or as you come across these little arrow thingies, different parts of the game change. And so you can read the text if you want. So below this icy spring are animals, the senatorial spring as parole, as population, not human in the forensic way, things for rooms, saying you are between 50 and 90% of victims and more than half dissipate. A big lie on or within the overhead. Please let the nominee die drinking and heavily attending. There are no other possibilities. So, or no other possible choices, beliefs, and it's changing rapidly, so you can't read it. So the thing that doesn't work is if you click it, so where it says load video proof, that doesn't work because those are referencing external, like they can't find the right file to load for that. But there is, what it is, when it works and if it's online, these are videos, and like some of them are like his home movies when he was a kid, and some of them are him like giving a improvisational lecture that doesn't make any sense, and so it's like things like that. There really are, those videos really are an important part of the text, but unfortunately they're not working. This one is a level where you get to read excerpts that look like they're from the Bible, like the Book of Gregory. And forth came the numbers, all super powerful in teaching hidden hours to batteryless clocks, or the Book of Jelly. And up was the official direction of heaven, and lions were there eating cake with bunnies. And the Book of Swordfishes, 2 services followed by a lunch of small dishes created from the strongest mayonnaise and the cheesiest noodles, the bakiest of beans and soupiest of hopes, such warm followers, such warm followers. The Book of Praegers, the laid in the dust and tires all plantations, rubbers for the tip to catch the clouds, the dark starting gun, and so on. And your goal is to try to get to the door. This one's called the Real Estate Agent. By the way, I haven't failed yet, but when you fail, it tells you that you failed. If you run into those blue guys. That's Jason's voice telling us, come on and meet your maker. So, special 18,000 room apartment with 2 bathrooms and blessing from 5 known gods. Their secret handshakes offering powers to hallways. Open 3 where walls hide the frameless community served as soft and temporary. They open windows to brick and still. Sale 11, build into this more rooms, 4 rooms and held into the veins and stairs. Lease me, lease you. They jumped from accounts vicious like percentages. And I failed, so that's another thing I can click on, but if I click on it, it won't work. So you kind of have to find... These games become challenging after a while, but the challenge isn't so much in executing the jump correctly. It starts to, I mean, although sometimes that is challenging, the challenge becomes like actually seeing the level well enough to understand what you're supposed to do and then actually pull it off. It has a sloppy look to it, but each of these lines are things he had to draw and scan and then program. I mean, these are things like he's doing this on purpose. Like this is a choice for him. And so I think that's, one critique sometimes students have is like, oh, it looks like sloppy, like crap, but it's not. I mean, it's very much, this is what it's supposed to look like, and this is something that took a fair amount of effort to create this specific look, right? So this is something we have to evaluate in terms of that choice. Like, why would you choose to make it look like this? This game is called Capitalism, and you try to climb the ladder. I think this is meant to be kind of a parody of shallow critiques of capitalism, more so than an actual like Marxist kind of critique. So this goes on for like I think 10 levels, but hopefully you get the idea of his aesthetics. I'm gonna try Evidence of Everything Exploding because I really like that one too. Let me close that one out. And I downloaded everything, didn't I? Yeah, there it is. So let me just do this. Get this Flash player open here. Oh, cool, it is working, good. So this is Evidence of Everything Exploding, and this one has a similar look to it in terms of being glitchy and weird looking, and but it actually is harder as a game. Like the actual game mechanics sort of make a bit more sense. And also the things that you're playing on, these are documents that have some kind of controversy associated with them or some kind of issue with them. This is the dictionary. And so the game mechanic is you're trying to open gateways and then you can go through them. Those guys that stay harmless, they're gonna harm me if I hit them, so I'm gonna avoid them. So this press for prophecy, I don't think that's gonna work. Oh, it is. Butterflies. It also kind of overwhelms your computer. Even though it's a Flash game, it's coded in a way that kind of multiplies quickly and can very much overwhelm what you're doing here. Let's see, that's this video evidence. Yeah, video evidence is probably not going to work. I think this is when he goes off on a lecture about Sharpie markers and erasers and pencils. So this is the Dadaist Manifesto that I'm playing on. Ah. Try to get to the next. I wanted to get to the next level, especially because it's pretty interesting. Yeah. It's harder than it looks. Okay, there we go. Whew. All right. Let's do a couple more. Not this one. The next one, I thought. Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you. The next one of the levels has you play on a document, which is a letter from Bill Gates to the hacker community, as he calls it. It was written in the late '70s, and this is where he's basically saying, "You all are a bunch of jerks for stealing my software." And so, what he's arguing for is really to think of software as property, which is something that is not guaranteed. Like, it's not, to me, it's not built into the nature of software. Software is inherently information. So to convince, it did take some work to convince people that software could be property and information could be property. But that's the premise that Bill Gates' entire business model was based on when he created Microsoft. And of course, now we do think of information as property and something that can be owned. Like you can buy, like when you buy, a movie, like nowadays, let's say there's a movie you want to watch and it's on Amazon Prime, you pay them $3. You don't really own that movie. You've leased permission to watch it under the conditions of that thing. You don't own the information. So that's established. Even though you can buy a DVD, you don't really own the movie. You own the medium that has the movie on it. And so if you accidentally break your DVD, you no longer have access to that movie because you never owned the movie to begin with. So these are ways in which property and ownership have kind of gotten weird. And Bill Gates has a big role in that, I think. All right, so a few more. Hopefully I can play. I'm liking all the Thrawn memes, Colin. Or GIFs, I guess they're memes. But that one was very small. Okay, so let me look at a couple more. One more I just found today when I was looking for something else, and I happened across it on itch.io, and it's this game. Where is it? So many tabs. Here it is. It's a really beautiful looking work, and I haven't had time to explore it very much, but it's by Ian McClarty, and it's a digital poem, but it's a game. So it's called If We Were Allowed to Visit. It's by Gemma Mahadeo, I guess, or Gemma. I don't actually know how you would say that. And then Ian McClarty. It uses the WASD keys and the mouse. So I'm going to click, and I'm moving here. This is a little bit harder for you to appreciate possibly, but for me, I'm moving around. It's a first-person view, right? So I'm actually viewing something rendered by a game engine, but it's rendering text instead of textures, like what we normally would see as like shaders and textures and things to create the look of an interactive world. All of that's text instead. And as you look at it, there's some of the text is like, if you look down, like I'm looking down right now, that's all dust. If you look up, it's all molecules and air and stuff. If you look at the house, there's language on the house. There's text on the house. Some of it's like descriptive, but some of it's actually poetry, I believe. Hard to read, but other than you can get little snippets here and there, but it kind of creates this desire to explore the house further. I'm going along the side here. There's a fence, and the fence has text on it. Something like that. Adrenaline, just a frog, not snake, not lizard predator, just wondering, you'll next water the young fruit tree, soak those roots real good. So there's some kind of, more poetry in a more conventional sense kind of built into this, but this whole thing together is really the work. There's this house. Inside the house, there's a yellow, black, brown carpet, just with the words. There's a plastic, I guess it's a Christmas tree because it's got plastic and tinsel, and things are moving or sparkling. Or no, that's outside. What's outside? What is that? Can I go out there? I think these are bees or flies. Really just a beautiful work and fascinating. I want to spend some more time with it. But yeah, this is called If We Were Allowed to Visit by Ian McClarty, and this was published pretty recently. So I think the idea of not being allowed to visit is something that kind of defines, or that we can think of in a very specific way in 2020, in the context of 2020 and all the isolation and social distancing. So really just a fascinating and kind of difficult to look at work, but I really like it. So let me get out of there. I'll go ahead and close the tab because I don't want to use up my memory. And there's my email. All right, so what else can I show you all? There are a few other games that I wanted to talk about that have to do with, yeah, it does hurt your eyes, Jack. It does hit harder, Kelly, and I think that's on purpose. Like, it was written today, essentially. I mean, it was published, I think 2 or 3 months ago, but it's written for today. So that's why I think it hits that hard. All right, so speaking of games that hurt your eyes, yeah, buckle in, because this is the next group of games I want to talk about, I think, let me see if there's any more. Okay, yeah, the next group of games I want to talk about are, you know what, let me come to those last, because they are challenging, and they're challenging to look at, and you might want to just look away. But I want to show you a couple more that come from sort of a special category of games. One of these are games that are kind of written to be kind of high art, I guess, or meant to be interesting in different ways. I'm going to play a little bit of Incubus. This is by Dreaming Methods. And, ooh, my computer just binged at me. So that was interesting. But let's see. I wanted to show you how to play Incubus. Where am I? I had to play it with Wine, and for some reason I can't get Wine 64 to launch from the context menu. Just one of many things I'm annoyed with on my computer lately. But let's see if I can get Incubus to work. My computer is dinging because, as I think I can tell, like I don't usually have this computer on at all while I'm streaming, but I have it now so I can do 2 screens, and it's looks like it's my mom sending me Bernie Sanders memes. So thanks, Mom. I don't know if she watches the stream sometimes, so if you're watching, thanks, Mom. I'll check those out later. I've seen those, of course, but I have not made one of my own yet. I haven't thought of a good idea. Seems like all the good ideas have already been taken. Okay, so this is a game called Incubus, and Incubus refers to, if you're not familiar, like the idea of a seducer demon kind of character. It's kind of that I guess legend or myth or whatever. But this takes on a different context for that. I'll show you a little bit of it. I don't think I'm going to be able to have time to get to what I think is the main form of gameplay in this game. But so far I'm moving around. I can look around using the WASD characters and the mouse. I'm playing as a teenage girl, and as I look around the room, you can see different things that you might think of as being typical things you would see in a teenage girl's room, including the laptop. So as I approach the laptop, then I'm invited to jump into the first kind of gameplay. This game is kind of creepy. It's something that's meant to be creepy. It's something that tries to talk about some difficult things. So the red text is my character typing, and then the blue is someone else, but we're not sure who that is. So it says, "No, I'm grounded. You're grounded. Oh, girl, that sucks. Why? What did you do?" So we have choices to make. If you see a choice that you want me to make, go ahead and tell me, but I'm going to probably choose pretty quickly because I want to get through these. So I can choose, why did I get grounded? Is it because I broke my brother's game console, because I sneaked out wearing mom's favorite gold hoops and lost one? I spent pounds on music, games, clothes, and shit. I'm supposed to be saving that money for uni. So I'm gonna go with broke my game console. But if you see if you see something here, maybe I'll make a suggestion. So they're saying OMG. Yeah, so mean they took away my mobile, restricted internet to exam revision sites. Boring. How are you chatting to me then? Oh, I have ways and means. Ha ha ha. Like what? I looked up how to hack around parental controls. Connection bit dodgy, but okay. Wow, you're like a real hacker. You'll be an anonymous next. So should I say, I just followed a tutorial, no big deal? Or how do you know I'm not already? Are you calling me a geek? I'm so insulted. I'm gonna go here. So as you make certain choices, the meter on the left goes up. You can see these are hearts on the bottom. those are going to be useful later if I get to the second level of gameplay here. Yeah. So this is Bex. This is who I'm talking to. There's a brief interlude here where our mom shows up. That was my son yelling in the background. Daniel, knock it off. Let's go back into the game here. Back. I think it's creepy the way that you see your reflection. Like, this is meant to be your reflection, your player character's reflection, and the fact that it's simulating this screen here makes us feel like we're in her position. There's something about to happen to the interlocutor here. I see that, Kelly. This is the person I'm chatting with, the blue person, is about to start transforming in subtle ways. So let's see if you notice it. Her conversation starts to get more and more. It starts to get very slowly. Starts to get aggressive or insulting or abusive. Basically, that's one thing that happens as it changes. Also, the typeface changes. So you can see, if you notice, the capital W there was in a different font. Now the whole text is in a different font, or most of it. And basically, the font gets more and more kind of exaggerated as the person on the other end gets more and more like angry and mean as it goes on. Eventually, the gameplay is, and I'm kind of trying to speed run this so I can get to the point here. I'm not actually thinking about my decisions. Once I get through to it, there is a point where I can fly around in a space and explore a three-dimensional space. We don't know, Kelly. Actually, that's something that's, yeah, this is actually about to be proposed here. You know me, don't pretend you don't. And this is one of the mysteries of this game, like, and one of the questions that it leaves you thinking about at the end, like who's the interlocutor here? Are they someone that we can trust or not? Are they trying to manipulate us into? Are they trying to like groom us into some kind of, kidnapping kind of situation? Is this a kind of catfishing thing? Is it just a projection of her inner monologue and her inner doubts about herself, kind of becoming this character? Really, there's no parent. So you notice how threatening it's starting to get, and the bubble here, the blue icon is getting more blue, and so there's no longer those things, the text speech bubbles in it. Do you act the way you want to be? I think I'm near the end here, but now you notice their bubble is gray now. I'm actually getting a lot of hearts here by just sort of picking without even noticing which question. When I played this earlier this morning, I got like 4 hearts. I don't really know what governs which decisions or types of responses characterize that. But if you notice, her facial expressions like the reflection of the face has these like micro expressions in it that are really interesting to read. Like, she seems to react with sort of pain and stress sometimes whenever there's really aggressive responses like the one I just saw. And so she's starting to, you see an eye start to appear here. Let's see if we can escape. Here we go. So I think this is where you can hear the breathing. Yeah, the sound is really ominous and dark, and what we are about to have to do is fly around. Yeah, you're right, Kelly. It is. And those eyes are going to show up again. So it's flying me down this hallway right now. I think the idea is like as we just saw images from the bedroom floating around, now we're in this kind of imaginary space, but it's as though we are crawling under the covers. So this is like we're inside the quilts, kind of swimming around under that. But it's obviously a much bigger space than could actually exist on a bed, because we fly around and have to solve problems, interact with some things here. Also, it's kind of interesting because as I'm playing this game, it's a fairly dark image. The girl's face appears there, it projected as though it's the reflection, but I can actually literally see my real reflection. So those become part of it. So now I'm flying around in this space. There's my friend or whatever. Becky, for real, want to help you? Click or spacebar to throw light. So, hi Becky here again. You can get out of here through a portal, find it. And basically you're trapped in this space, but you can click the spacebar to make these bubbles. So you can go left or right to make a choice. But that was, something thought that was the wrong choice. So these are things I can destroy by clicking. Advertising messages. And if you run into one of them, your hearts go down. So the more hearts you get in that first part gives you a better chance of success in this second part. So there's a portal there. All right. So anyway, it's a game that has some pretty heavy themes. It has to do with kind of adolescent self-esteem kind of issues, and also like understanding manipulative messages in media, including video games. So this is the kind of art game I would classify as like having a message or having a thing for us to think about. And several of Dreaming Methods works do have that kind of purpose to them. So this one, unfortunately, I can't. I have to actually get out and kill it. There's no way within the game to escape it. Okay, so I did want to also show you one called The Graveyard, but I think I'm going to skip it. It's just in the interest of time. There are a couple more I really wanted to show you that I really like, and I think more people should know about. So first one is, actually I don't know if this one's going to work. This is Lost in the Catacombs. This is by the same person who did the one I just showed you with all the text. What is it called? I already lost the name, but if we could visit that one? Oh wait, no. Did I already get this one? Extracted? No, I did already extract it. So let's see if this will play. Oh yeah, it does. Okay, so this is a game that may hurt your eyes. If you do have photosensitive issues, like with epilepsy or anything like that, this and a couple other games that I'm about to play might be an issue for you. Just a warning. Feel free to turn it off or minimize the screen if you want to keep hearing me talk, but don't want to look at it. That's understandable. This is a maze kind of game, and I'm going to move pretty slowly so that it doesn't overwhelm anybody. But as I'm turning around, let me just make sure that it's showing you all the right thing. Yeah, you can see how there is a definite sense of space, and these walls seem to exist, and I can move through them, but sometimes the way that I move doesn't make sense anymore. So it's like it looks like I'm going down a hallway, but then it turns out to have just been a picture of a hallway, and that changes dynamically as you move through the space. So it's actually, there is a sense of movement, like you can actually find your way through this, sort of, but not really. And it becomes extremely difficult to navigate, even once you start figuring out, where you feel like you kind of have gotten used to the idea, or you think you have, it suddenly becomes something that you didn't expect it to be. Or like you would think, oh, I can just turn down this hallway, but that hallway is no longer there. And it's a really interesting game. It's called Lost in the Catacombs, or Catacombs of Solaris, I think, by Ian McClarty. Really interesting and really a kind of a nauseating game to play, actually, so I'm going to get out of it. But it's one of these games among the group that I'm going to show you now that have to do with a kind of glitch aesthetic, or what I would think of as a kind of excess, meaning they overwhelm in some way, and this game is very overwhelming visually. It's similar to a different game that I think I'm going to play last because it's going to, once I play it, it's going to mess up my resolution and will probably kill the stream. But it's a game called Lost in the Static. Another one that I don't have time to show you, but I can recommend sort of, is called Randy Balma, Municipal Abortionist, by a guy named Mark Essen, or Messhoff is the name he goes by online. It's not actually about abortion, I don't think. It's a surreal kind of game. It's very visually glitchy and intense, and definitely could trigger anyone with photosensitive issues. So that's one reason why I'm not going to play it. The other reason is that I can't get the sound. We're working on it currently on my computer. I think it's a really challenging game. It's a game where the controls change as you play. So your first level is you're trying to drive a bus, and left and right keep flipping. So you have to try to drive and make your way down a highway, but the back and forth changes every time, or every couple seconds, unpredictably. So that's no good. I think I will play just one more, and then because I know I've been going on for a little while, and I want to wrap this up. But I'll just do one more, and this is, you know what? Actually, no, I will do Graveyard. Just might as well, right? This is a game called The Graveyard. And this is not a glitchy kind of game. This is another Memento Mori kind of game, but it's made by a group called Tale of Tales. They did a really well-known game called The Path, which is a kind of art game too. But this one's very short, so I'm going to go ahead and just play it quickly here. We'll keep it, it's kind of small. And this is a game that is, if anything, more like a painting, and definitely a kind of anti-game. Kind of like, I think, that one with the fly is kind of an anti-game, kind of like Mountain is an anti-game because nothing really happens. This is a game where you play as this old woman, and this is actually the demo version, or the trial version, as they call it. And it is all that you see here. This is it. This is a woman walking in a graveyard. Well, you can spend a lot of time here, basically. You can spend as long as you want. You can look at some of the markers. If you make it all the way to, there's kind of a church at the end, or, there's a building at the end, and there's a bench at the end of the walkway that I'm on right now. And if you make it all the way down there, you can sit on the bench, and she has a recollection. She experiences a memory, and then it ends, and then you can leave. You can also, you can turn around. Well, she's an old woman, so she moves slowly. And she remembers her life. She remembers some of the people that are buried there. And it's a game about spending time with those kinds of memories. A game that's not fun. It's not meant to be fun. It's a game that is not exciting. But when you look at a game like this, you have to reject those kinds of criteria. Like, you can't say, oh, this game is not a good game because it's not fun. Like, it's clearly not trying to do that. So that's not really a valid assessment of the game. Of course it's not fun. It's something else. Does it succeed at doing that something else? That's where we can debate about it. But I think if it's a game that if you spend the time with it, which is really just 10 minutes or so, I think it has a lot of value. It forces you to pause, forces you to slow down. And these are things that games don't usually do. Usually they do the opposite. Usually games are all about running through as fast as you can. So anytime a game gets you in a situation where you're slowing down, you're paying attention, I think that's a good thing, and that's what good art does. If you go to art galleries, the ones that, like when I go to art galleries, there's so much art sometimes, it can be really overwhelming, but every now and then there's one that just kind of grabs you, and you just have to sit with it for a minute. And that's the kind of experience that a game like this is attempting to create. This idea of sitting with an experience and with an idea, with a moment, and with a person, like a fictional person here, but a person that might be like someone might be like someone you're related to. So it's a surprisingly powerful little game. This is by, these are the credits. So I recommend it. It's a free game you can download if you want. I'll put links up in Canvas later to things like this. Okay, well, one more demo, and this one's a little different because it's not actually meant to be art, I don't think, but I think it has a kind of beauty to it that's really unusual, definitely in the glitch category, and it's a game that still exists only in demo form. The developer has been working on it, I think, since like 2013, but he has a Twitch stream. You can watch him. He's still working on it. So it's called Memories of a Broken Dimension, and it kind of has a cult following, so maybe you've seen it already, but I thought I would let's go ahead and crank this up a little bit. Thought I would share it with you all. Okay, so I might actually go full screen on this one. You know what? Actually, let me go bigger than that. Yeah, that'll work. Although I'm kind of in the way of part of it, I think. But yeah, that works. Okay, good. So the game starts off like this. It looks like we've hacked our way into some kind of unusual computer system. If you can hear it, it's kind of a humming sound, occasional kind of clicking sounds. And you can type. It's a command line. It's got some similarities to a Windows command line as opposed to Linux. So if you want to see what's in this directory, you can type dir. And you can see some programs here, void scan, remotes, and the text glitches and changes, but the other one, there was one called dive as well. So we can type some of these names. This is what happens if you type remote. Shut down successful. It's doing something, connecting to satellites. I think what's really happening is the game is loading, but it's giving us this glitchy kind of explanation of connecting to this mysterious satellite, and it's creating a portal for us to experience a different dimension. And that takes some work, as you can see. Oh, it is ready. Okay, so I can hit directory, and got different options here. One of the nice touches I like is if you hit escape, it says no escape at the end there. I like that. Okay, so did I do void scan? No, I didn't. I just did remote. Let me try void scan. There we go. And I said this game is unusual in this because I don't think the artist, who goes by the name XRA, I don't think it's meant to be like art. This is not something that I think would work as well in a gallery, but I don't know how else to describe this experience that you're about to see when I play this game. So I did what to do. I think I just need to dive. Yeah. Okay. You have to do. This is a game, but when you first download it, there's no instructions. Like there's no here's what you do unless maybe somebody tells you what to do. So first time I played this, it was a lot of trial and error in this space until I figured out that those are the commands you have to run. And then once you do that, it launches the game. So all of that there was not the game. This is the game. It's a very dark game visually. It's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to move as well as I can here. It's easier to play at night, actually, because of how dark it is. But there's this space that I'm in. You can kind of see this sort of, like you can sort of see the grid of the room I'm in. And then there are these, I'm leaving traces as I walk, and it kind of glitches out the closer you get to certain objects. But there's kind of a really faint, like a reticule, like an aiming reticule built into the floor here. And then when I look through it at this particular space, it lights up like that. Like I can walk through this right now. I don't know if you can see me doing that. But when it lights up like that, that means I'm looking at it at the right angle. And when I look at it at the right angle, I can click, and then it becomes solid. So now that I've done that, it's solid, and I can move up on top of it using WASD. So this is kind of the demo level. If you follow this up the side, it goes up into the wall, and then you can walk through the wall into the next room, which has sort of a white thing. You fall through the room several times, and this game involves a lot of squinting and a lot of kind of guessing, and you're looking for these really faint little things that light up other things. So I got one there. That's kind of in the corner, I think. And so things are sort of barely visible. They're only visible if you look at them from a certain angle, and they kind of glitch in and out of existence. And right now I'm inside of something, so that's why it's going crazy. And I'm not sure. Yeah, actually I think for this room you have to walk in through the wall into the next room first before you can actually progress. So then this one has 3 of these things. Yeah, a really fascinating game, and in some ways, there is a kind of beauty to it, I think, but it's a very different kind of beauty than like what Colin was talking about earlier with Hollow Knight. Like this is a game that, in a lot of ways, is really ugly, but it's ugly in a really elegant way, if that makes sense. And it's a kind of ugliness that I personally really like. I find it really, I don't know, it's hard to describe why. It sort of scratches an itch for me that I find is really interesting. And it's something that sort of affects my brain in ways that other things don't. It's kind of like glitch art, if you've ever looked at glitch art, broken GIFs, that kind of thing. That's something I like doing and making sometimes, and this game kind of gets into that mindset aesthetically. Certainly something really unusual happening here, and hopefully the full game will be released eventually, and we can probably won't ever really figure out what's going on in terms of the computer interface thing, but certainly a really interesting, different way of thinking about gameplay. I'm not even, see, I was hoping I could at least get through one more room, but I don't think I can. I'm gonna wrap it up because I've been going about an hour and a half, so I'm gonna put an end to it. You can probably barely even see this on the stream, but that's kind of the appeal in some ways. Okay, so yeah, hitting escape just gets you back to the relics system screen, but I can just Alt-Tab out of it to kill it. Where's my cursor? I don't have a cursor. Well, that's weird. No, there it is. Wait, where was it? I saw it for a second, but it's not. I can't get my cursor to show up again, so I can't click on things. That's okay. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay. I don't think there is actually a way to quit this once you're in it. Because if you hit escape, it says no escape. Yeah, but it's grabbed my cursor and it hasn't given it back. So that's a little inconvenient. Well, I am going to wrap up the stream. That's what I'm trying to do. Maybe I had a few more kind of final words to say. Maybe I'll just say those while I'm trying to find my cursor. Wow, okay. Well, we'll do this the hard way. So this is 5. I'm just going to kill the process if I can. Is that not right? No? Okay, that didn't work. Because it disappeared, but it didn't die. Okay, that's why. Sorry, I'm just trying to kill the right process here. 590934. There it goes. Okay. Yay. Okay, that works. Nice. Okay, so how are you all doing? You all okay? Let's see. I was not looking at Discord while I was trying to play that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All the Thrawn. I like Thrawn too. Okay. So yeah, this is the end. It's hard to believe, right? I do kind of want to hear how it went in some ways. There is the course evaluation thing, and that exists. It's in Canvas. You should be able to find a link to that in Canvas. I will look at those. I'm curious to hear how things went because in two ways. First of all, I like the class, like the concept. This is something I haven't got to teach for a couple of years, so I was pretty excited about the opportunity, and that's why I taught it. I probably, like in terms of the content and just the ideas, I really liked it. So that's something I might try to do again next year. Whether or not there's a January term, I might try to do it either fall or spring next year if there's room in my teaching schedule. There's other things I have to see. But yeah, so that's something I want to hear. Like, did it make sense to you all? Was it an interesting topic? Was the workload manageable? That kind of thing. But also just I'm curious in your thoughts about the 3-week experience, like the idea of doing it in 3 weeks. Did you all feel as, I guess, stressed out as I did and exhausted as I am? Maybe not. I mean, maybe, it's a different, your work is different. Like you all have work that you do, of course, and I have a different kind of thing. Like I have to do the class prep every day to get the lectures ready. For me, it was a lot more work than I thought it would be. I liked doing the work, but there are certain lectures I wish I had done more and had more into it. But, just the preparation that you have to do for a live stream lecture is different and more than an in-person lecture in my experience so far. So it's challenging, but you all have been doing good work, so I've been happy to see that. But yeah, you all are seeing some comments here in Discord. Yeah, so it's been nothing but crunch time. Yeah, me too. I'll check out Hollow Knight. I always like hearing endorsements. Suggestions for other games. That's always good to know about. Yeah. Cool. Well, I definitely enjoyed it. I do wish, one regret I have, I guess, about it being a 3-week only online class is that I feel like I barely got to know many of you. Some of you I know already, but a lot of you are just names. Like, I don't really even know what you look like other than, brief meetings online. So I think that's one regret I have, is that I didn't get a chance to really, chat with you all and kind of get to know you as people. But I get to know you. I do get to know you as students. So that's something that's good. The couple, final reminders, and this will be wrapping up the stream here just shortly, of the final grades. There's a question Maddie had about final grades. So your final assignments, everything is due Sunday evening. So all the reflections, all the, the final project, everything is due Sunday evening. If you can get it in before then, that would be great. But if you need that time, you have it, it's yours. I will be finalizing grades through the weekend. I'll be grading things, but as far as the final grade, that will, I have to get that done and submitted to Banner by Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. So knowing me, that's probably about when I will get it done. So, but what I'll do is, after you've submitted your final grade rationale, then I will respond to that with what I think is the appropriate grade. About that, by the way, I gave you a pretty extensive kind of philosophy behind why I do that earlier today. Just another reminder, as you're thinking about what to do with these. I've done different things like this before, where students propose grades for themselves, and it can be a challenge, I think, sometimes. Sometimes students feel self-conscious about asking for an A when they don't really think they deserved it. But go ahead and think well of yourself. Choose the best possible grade you think you can rationalize, I will probably agree with you. I almost always agree with students' grades that they propose. So this isn't a trick question. This isn't something like I'm going to see well, if you request an A, that means you're obviously full of yourself, so therefore you get a C. I'm not doing that. This isn't a game. It's just, I want to give you a chance to talk about your work in a metacognitive kind of way. So that's what I'm hoping for there. Don't try to read any reverse psychology into it. It's literally just what it is. So if you have any questions about what to do for that or anything else, please let me know. Let's see. That's how I roll. Let's see. I can't think of anything else to say, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off the stream. Of course, I'll be archiving this, as I always have been. But thanks for taking the class. Thanks for, taking a chance on a 3-week class. And overall, I think it was a good experience. So, good luck finishing everything. If I can help you as you're figuring out your final stuff, let me know. If you have any questions about ideas for the project or anything like that, please reach out in Discord. Okay, see you later. Have a good time. Or what was it Donald Trump said when he got off the helicopter, or get on the helicopter? Something like, "We'll see you soon and have a good life." So, not that I want to emulate Donald Trump, but trying to think of some clever way to sign off. I can't think of any, so I will just say goodbye. Have a good afternoon, good weekend, and best of luck in all your future endeavors.